Я 18-летний карлик, спросите у меня что-нибудь.
Озвучено при поддержке Авиасейлс.
У меня псевдоахондроплазия, карликовость. Я каждый день курю траву и шучу над собой больше, чем кто-либо из вас может надо мной пошутить. У меня артрит и сколиоз, задавайте свои вопросы. Вот доказательство 1, доказательство 2. Фотографии можешь посмотреть в нашем телеграм-канале, ссылка в закрепленном комментарии. Какого ты роста и почему у тебя именно псевдоахондроплазия? Что в ней псевдо? Ты как-то ослабляешь свою боль, и если да, то чем пользуешься? У меня сильный артрит, и мне всегда интересно, как другие люди справляются с ним. Мой рост 128 сантиметров. У карликов с ахондроплазией, большинство карликов, что вы видите, большая голова. Псевдоахондроплазия похожа на ахондроплазию в том смысле, что у нас почти такие же руки и ноги. Но я отличаюсь от других карликов тем, что моя голова среднего размера. Я стараюсь держаться подальше от обезболивающих, но мне реально помогает трава. А боль иногда появляется даже при обычной ходьбе. Что хуже, боль от артрита или невозможность дотянуться и заглянуть в ящик с носками и нижним бельем? Хуже всего то, что мне приходится забираться на собственную столешницу на кухне, чтобы достать чашку или тарелку. Боль на втором месте. Она появляется в неочевидных ситуациях, о которых бы вы вряд ли подумали. Сегодня я был в походе, спокойно прошел 3 мили, поднялся в гору, но садясь в машину, что-то повредил в колени. Проблема карликов. Твои родители тоже карлики? Мой отец да, мама нет. Дедушка с отцовской стороны да, бабушка нет. Прадедушки и прабабушки с отцовской стороны среднего роста. Я всегда говорю, что прабабушка трахалась с молочником. Реально, что люди с твоим заболеванием предпочитают термин «маленький человек» более старому, предположительно неполиткорректному термину. Это спорная тема. Разным карликам нравятся разные термины. Лично меня устраивает любой вариант, кроме лилипута. Лилипут — это термин, который использовался в уничижительном смысле в течение сотен лет. Короче говоря, не используйте его, и все будет окей. Ты счастлив? Хороший вопрос. В целом это зависит от количества моей социальной активности и от того, с кем я общаюсь. У меня есть близкий друг, рядом с которым я могу смело ходить в трусах и чувствовать себя уверенно, но при этом у меня в жизни могут быть дни, когда я выхожу на улицу полностью закутанный и сторонюсь пристальных взглядов. Но ужаснее всего чувство отчуждения. Последнюю неделю я был в отпуске, и это было мое самое счастливое время. Ща без шуток, как у тебя с пенисом? Если честно, когда я в последний раз его измерял, он был 19 сантиметров. Многие женщины очень этому удивляются. Значит, Тириан говорил правду? Насколько я понимаю анатомию, пенис не ограничен костной тканью, а большинство форм карликовости в конечном итоге вызваны тем, что что-то препятствует нормальному росту костей. В результате у большинства карликов на самом деле обычные полноразмерные члены, которые, я уверен, выглядят весьма впечатляюще с точки зрения пропорций. Ты довольно симпатичный, тебе уже предлагали сняться в проне? Пока не предлагали, но если в ближайшие несколько лет предложат, то я бы согласился. Есть ли какие-то известные карлики или маленькие люди, которые тебя вдохновляют? Только один, Питер Динклейдж. Он единственный известный карлик, который, как я вижу, не использует свой рост для получения славы. У него настоящий актерский талант. Привет, чего бы ты хотел, чтобы люди знали о тебе? Я думаю, окружающие должны понимать, что карлики такие же люди, как и все остальные. В основном это касается отношений. Многие люди обращают свое внимание на рост. К примеру, мне нравятся высокие девушки, а не низкие, так что я спокойно отношусь к предпочтениям людей. Но при этом я слышал фразочки вроде «я бы встречалась с тобой, если бы ты был выше». Это ужасно. Правда ли, что женщин-карликов не существует и что карлики просто выпрыгивают из дыр в земле? Кстати, это может показаться странным, но я никогда не видел карлицу, которая была бы привлекательной. И не сказать, что я знаю многих карликов, которым нравятся другие карлики, а появляемся мы в самом конце радуги. Кто до него доберется, тому мы и достанемся. Не сказать, что я знаю многих карликов, которым нравятся другие карлики. Погоди, чего? Среди нас много тех, кто ненавидит карликов. Скажу прямо, я знаю, что выгляжу довольно странно, но я один из самых нормально выглядящих карликов. Некоторые из нас те еще криповые ублюдки. Как ты знакомишься, встречаешься с женщинами? Ты упомянул, что встречаешься с высокими женщинами. На каком форуме ты с ними знакомишься и переписываешься? Обычно такие женщины отдают предпочтение невысоким парням или встречаются с разными. Я просто пользуюсь приложением для знакомств, и если у нас матч, то я встречаюсь с девушкой. Я специально не ищу высоких, но я как невысокий мужчина могу сказать, что они реально в топе. Но типа вряд ли какая-то девушка будет прям низкой по сравнению со мной. Не знаю твоей жизненной ситуации, но если бы ты был сам по себе, как бы ты устроил свою кухню? Верхних шкафов бы не было, или бы ты поставил что-то, чтобы дотянуться до них? В мире моих грез уже построен мой собственный дом, который как бы наполовину меньше обычного, но в реальном мире, где я живу, все равно все используют верхние шкафы. Мне просто нужна стремянка. Но боже, она так надоедает. Представьте, что вам приходится использовать слушать стремянку каждый раз, когда вы захотите выпить стакан воды или поесть. Ты бы когда-нибудь сел за руль мини-купер? Могу сказать, как механик точно нет, но внешний вид мне нравится. В детстве ты осознавал, что ты ниже других? Да, но полное осознание этого пришло только в средней школе. А до начальной школы я и не замечал, что я не такой, как все. Многие дети-инвалиды не достигают этого осознания, пока не столкнутся со внешней силой. Я думаю, если бы мы достигли того уровня в обществе, когда дети бы не пялились на тебя, и у нас появилось бы много подходящей инфраструктуры и разных приспособлений, благодаря которым инвалиды бы не чувствовали себя не такими, как все, многие дети-инвалиды могли бы достигнуть конкретных высот. Но дети есть дети, и в человеческой природе заложен интерес к непохожим на них людям, и вы не можете на них обижаться. Однако, если вы родитель, и вы не готовы отдернуть ребенка за неподобающее поведение, то это сделаю я. Читая твои ответы, и не скажешь, что тебе всего 18. Ты реально умен и красноречив не по годам. Вопрос: будучи механиком, ты можешь водить машину? Я знаю, что автомобиль можно как-то модифицировать, но мне еще интересно, не является для тебя болезненным сам процесс вождения. Спасибо большое за твою доброту. Я способен водить многие машины без помощи удлинителей или модификаций, которые мне пришлось бы сделать. Проблема только в машинах с сиденьями, которые мало двигаются, или статичными рулями. Однако я сделал свои собственные удлинители из ПВХ трубы. Они универсальны для любой машины. Боли никакой, если только колени не сильно близко расположены к педалям. Представьте, что в течение 30 минут, пока вы едете, вам нужно держать ногу согнутой в колени и регулярно ее поднимать. Можешь назвать несколько простых вещей, которые бы ты хотел, чтобы люди делали, чтобы облегчить твою жизнь, но обычно они этого не делают? Было бы хорошо, если бы люди были внимательнее к тому, что они просят или говорят карликам. Типа, если я прошу что-нибудь попить, а ты отвечаешь стакан в шкафу, то мне будет немного затруднительно до него добраться, и твоя помощь была бы очень кстати. Если гном просит тебя пойти с ним, чтобы что-то сделать, то скорее всего это потому, что ему нужна помощь, и он будет чувствовать себя комфортно, если ему поможешь именно ты, а не кто-то другой. А еще было бы круто, если вы бы просто разговаривали с нами. К примеру, если вы видите карлика, сидящего в одиночестве в кафе, подойдите к нему, поговорите с ним. Лично я часто чувствую себя отчужденным, поэтому легкий комплимент или небольшая беседа сильно скрасят мой день. Не покажется ли тебе такое поведение снисходительным? Типа, я не подхожу и не разговариваю с незнакомыми людьми в общественных местах. Вокруг слишком много психов, так что делать исключение только из-за карликовости мне кажется немного потворством. Я бы предположил, что, как и все остальные, ты не оценил бы попытку рандомного незнакомца завязать с тобой разговор. Так что я бы просто оставил тебя в покое, как и всех остальных. Я не говорю, что с рандомным карликом нужно устраивать беседу в стиле этого треда, но если пройти мимо и сказать «мне нравится твоя рубашка» или сесть рядом с ним в кофейне и просто перекинуться парой фраз, то ему будет приятно. Подобные вещи помогают инвалидам обрести чувство принятия обществом. В одном из своих ответов ты говорил, что было бы хорошо, если бы люди подходили к тебе, если видели, что ты сидишь один в кофейне, потому что из-за своего заболевания ты порой чувствуешь себя отчужденным. Предположим, что это кофейня, и вы оба сидите. Тогда разговор пройдет относительно легко, поскольку так вы оба будете примерно одного роста. А если вы оба стоите, я могу предположить, что тебе будет очень тяжело разговаривать с людьми выше тебя в течение длительного периода времени. Устанет шея и так далее. Отсюда и мой вопрос: какое положение, на твой взгляд, стоило бы занимать людям во время разговора с тобой? Не напрягает ли тебя необходимость поднимать голову и сгибать шею, чтобы посмотреть во время разговора на кого-то выше тебя, или ты уже к этому привык? Не будет ли актом надменности, если кто-то приседает, чтобы поговорить с тобой? Хороший вопрос. Приседать до моего уровня — это очень оскорбительный жест. Просто стойте нормально и все. Касаемо неудобства, да, шея действительно затекает. Представьте, что вы смотрите таким образом фильм. Но лучше так, чем когда кто-то приседает, чтобы оказаться на моем уровне. Если что, я лучше буду говорить громче, чтобы ты мог меня услышать. Тебе когда-нибудь хотелось, чтобы в мире было больше карликов? Потому что за свою короткую жизнь я видел всего несколько человек, и мне всегда хотелось, чтобы разных людей было больше. Я понимаю, что карликовость — это болезнь, и, возможно, с этим нелегко жить, но, не знаю, просто надоедает видеть много одинаковых людей. И как ты относишься к карликовым кошкам или собакам по сравнению со средними по размеру? Лично я бы своему злейшему врагу не пожелал быть карликом. Это тяжелое и очень психически истощающее заболевание. У меня проблемы с уверенностью в себе, которые возникают, когда на меня смотрят, или когда я думаю о том, как мне сделать то или иное действие. Типа, у меня руки короче, поэтому мне приходится сгибать шею, чтобы поправить головной убор. Я постоянно сомневаюсь, не выгляжу ли я странно, когда делаю что-то подобное. Многие думают, что было бы круто быть карликом, но боли, проблемы с психикой превышают все плюсы. Да, меня пропускают в очередях в парках развлечений, меня как ребенка пускают почти везде. Если я встречу какого-нибудь знаменитого чувака, то он, скорее всего, захочет со мной поговорить. Окей, иногда это может быть круто, но если мне на глаза начнут попадаться все больше карликов, я бы хотел, чтобы в мире создали какую-нибудь некоммерческую организацию, которая могла бы поддерживать семьи, что не были готовы к рождению карлика. Типа в моем случае это не было понятно до 1,5 лет. Карликовые животные это круто, но если это медицинская аномалия, а не когда их специально разводят таким образом, в этом случае это ужас. У животных возникает огромное количество дегенеративных проблем, которые не стоят того, чтобы люди просто восхитились милой собачкой. Большое спасибо за просмотр и не забудьте посмотреть наши другие видосы. Обнял, пока.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.